Hey, and welcome back to Wild Mythology. I welcome you to the channel with bread and salt. For today's video, I'm going to be talking about 5 sun gods from mythology and folklore. But before we get to that, don't forget to join this month's giveaway for the 25th anniversary book of Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes by Edith Hamilton. All you have to do is subscribe and make a comment on this video. Plus, don't forget to comment on any other video I make this May. It gives you an extra chance to win. Now, let's get on to the sun gods of mythology. Number 1. Helios. Helios is the Titan of the sun from Greek mythology, and is the child of Hyperion, the Titan of light, and Thea, the Titaness of sight, as well as the brother to Selene, the Titaness of the moon, and Eos, the Titaness of the dawn. As the Titan of the sun, Helios was responsible for riding his golden chariot, which represented the sun from east to west every day. Helios built the sun chariot soon after his birth, and found the 4 marvelous horses Aethon, Eus, Pyroi, and Phlegon to pull his chariot across the sky. As the god of the sun, Helios was informed of everything the light of the sun touched. This made him aware of the disappearance of Persephone, as well as getting him into trouble when he discovered the affair Aphrodite was having with Ares. In mythology, the most famous myth involving Helios is the myth of his son Phaethon. In the myth, Phaethon's mother Clymene had multiple affairs with Helios, resulting in the birth of Phaethon and his older sisters. When Phaethon grew older, his mother told him who his true father was, resulting in Phaethon bragging to his friends. But his friends didn't believe him, so Phaethon set out to the far east to his father's palace. When he found Helios, Phaethon begged his father to let him drive and ride his chariot, and eventually Helios reluctantly agreed. However, Phaethon lost control of the horses, resulting in the sun chariot getting too close to the earth. This caused mass fires, the creation of the Sahara Desert, and many deaths amongst the mortals. Outraged about the destruction of the Earth's surface, Zeus threw one of his lightning bolts at Phaethon, resulting in the poor boy's death and stopping the horses. Devastated and feeling guilty for the loss of his son, Helios stopped driving his chariot across the sky, until eventually Zeus was able to convince him to continue his work. Number 2. Bila. Bila is the goddess and personification of the sun from Aboriginal Australian myths of the Adnyamanthana people. In mythology, Bila would send out her red dogs to raid villages and have them bring back the village people to her. Once she acquired people, she would roast them over her fire and eat them. Bila slaughtered many villages using this method, which resulted in panic and fear to travel across the land. Eventually, the news reached 2 of the lizard men. Kundu, the guana lizard man, and Muda, the gecko lizard man, were disgusted with the sun goddess's behavior and decided to put a stop to it. The lizard men attacked Bila and her dogs, and as Bila was about to be defeated, she decided to flee. But as she was fleeing, Kundu pulled out his boomerang and flung it at the goddess. The boomerang caught Bila and carried her back as the boomerang returned. Now Bila encircles the earth, illuminating its surface as the boomerang continues to carry her around and around. Number 3. Nanahuatzin. In Aztec mythology, Nanahuatzin is the god of the sun and has one of the most interesting myths in how he became as such. In mythology, the earth was at its 5th age of rebirth. All the previous ages had a different sun god, but they had ended because the gods were unhappy with each rendition of humans. So after creating respectable humans in the beginning of the 5th age, the gods decided that the next sun god would have to sacrifice themselves to fire. 2 gods were chosen: Tequis-Tecatl, a strong, handsome, and wealthy god, and Nanahuatzin, a poor god with weak health. The gods made a huge bonfire, and on the day of the sacrifice, Tequis-Tecatl and Nanahuatzin sat by the fire. The gods called upon Tequis-Tecatl to jump first, but Tequis-Tecatl hesitated multiple times to jump into the flame, causing the gods to call him an honorless coward. The gods then called upon Nanahuatzin, who instantly got up and walked into the flame. Tequis-Tecatl, seeing the weak god instantly walk into the fire, quickly lost his hesitance and jumped in. A moment later, 2 suns showed in the sky. One of the gods was still angry over Tequistetecatl's cowardness, and so threw a rabbit at him, making him lose his radiance, thus turning him into the moon. From that day on, Nanahuatzin became known as Tonatiuh, and was no longer viewed as weak. Number 4. Amaterasu. In Japanese mythology, Amaterasu is one of the 3 sacred children and is the goddess of the sun, the ruler of the heavens, and the queen of the universe. She is the daughter of Izanagi, one of the creators of Japan, as well as the older sister of Tsukuyomi, the god of the moon, and Susanoo, the god of the sea and storms. In mythology, Amaterasu was born from Izanagi's left eye when he purified himself from the grime of his failed adventure in Yomi, the Japanese underworld. After the birth of his 3 sacred children, Izanagi appointed each of them a domain, giving Amaterasu the sun and the heavens Takamagahara. The most famous myth involving Amaterasu takes place soon after her birth. After having defeated her brother Susanoo in a contest, Susanoo erupted with rage and started destroying and defecating Amaterasu's palace. This continued for many days until Susanoo threw a flayed horse into the palace, killing one of Amaterasu's handmaidens. Furious, Amaterasu went to the cave Amano-Awato and locked herself away, resulting in darkness and the first winter gracing the world with its presence. With Amaterasu locked away, there was no longer a sun in the sky, which made the rest of the gods panic. Many gods went to the entrance of the cave, which was blocked with a humongous boulder, and tried to convince Amaterasu to come out. But she ignored them. This continued for half a year until Omoi Kane, the god of wisdom, had enough. Omoi Kane threw a humongous party outside of the cave, filled with music and laughter. The party continued to crescendo throughout the day, with the gods thundering with excitement during the performance of Ame no Uzume, the goddess of the dawn. Hearing the gods' excitement for the dawn goddess's performance, Amaterasu grew curious and so moved the boulder to take a peek outside. She found the mirror known as Yata no Kagami that the god of wisdom had so cleverly placed. Seeing her reflection in the mirror, Amaterasu was so taken by her own beauty that she stepped outside of the cave. Omoi Kane then quickly sealed the cave shut so Amaterasu could not go back in. With Amaterasu out of the cave, the sun returned to the world and winter began to melt. Amaterasu apologized for her behavior and was forgiven by the other gods. Number 5. Malina. In Inuit mythology, Malina is the goddess of the sun and the brother of Igaluk, the god of the moon. In mythology, Malina and her brother Igaluk grew up in a small village and were very close when they were young. But as they got older, they grew apart. One day, Igaluk saw Malina and fell in love with her great beauty. So that night, he snuck into Malina's bedroom and slept with her, and continued to do so over the coming weeks. Because it was dark, Malina was never able to see who she was sleeping with, until one day she had an idea. That night, she took some soot and used it to cover Igaluk's face. After they were done, Malina went to the housing where all the men in the village slept. Using a lamp, Malina shined the light onto all the men's sleeping faces, only to discover that her brother's face was covered in soot. Embarrassed that her brother was the man she had been sleeping with, Malina confronted Igaluk and then ran away while holding her lamp. Igaluk then picked up a torch and chased after her. Igaluk kept chasing his sister until he tripped, causing his torch to go out in the snow. When he got back up, his torch only had a slight glow at its bottom, but he continued the chase anyways. Eventually, he caught up to her, and over time, the speed of the siblings began to rise until finally Malina and Igaluk began to run into the sky. There, Malina became the sun, and to this very day, she continues to run away from her brother the moon. And there it is, I give you 5 gods of the sun. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go check out our other content, and don't forget to subscribe and comment so you can enter our giveaway. Well, until next time on Wild Mythology.